Hi all, this is Skate, and this is a video about the Tier 10 tank destroyers, specifically the Death Star. You guys in the comments section have asked me for my opinion on this topic quite a lot. We just bounced the Death Star, by the way. And that's exactly what this video is about. So before we get stuck in, let me just make it clear that this is my opinion. I'm entitled to it. I'm making that very clear from the start, because oh my god, the amount of rage over this topic for the Death Star and against the Death Star is unreal. And people are ripping each other's heads off over this topic and over this tank, purely because they don't have the same opinion as the person next to them. So in this video I wanted to discuss my opinion, because like I said, it's been in the comments section of so many of my videos asking me for, well, to make a video on this topic. So I finally am, and here it is. It's where to start. I mean, the background footage. First off, this background footage is from last night. I played all the Tier 10s tank destroyers back to back, except for the E3, because I don't have it in my garage anymore. It's the only Tier 10 tank I don't have. And there's a bit of background I want to give, actually. I have played every single Tier 10 tank, and I'm a massive fan of Tier 10. In fact, I have 35,000 battles on my account. 10,000 of them are at Tier 10 in Tier 10 tanks. So why is the Death Star such a big issue all of a sudden? Well, it's that one-shot ability and its popularity. But let me ask an honest question. If the Death Star was nerfed because it was too popular, where do you think everyone who plays them are going to go? Jaegeroo? Because this thing's an absolute monster, and it hasn't got much difference in terms of AP alpha. But you don't hear a lot of people complaining about the Jaegeroo, and it's because it's not as popular, and that is exactly what the issue is with the Death Star. It's so popular. More people play that tank destroyer than any other. And for one reason only: alpha. The alpha is insane, and that's what people's problems are. There's so many of them, and there's so much alpha damage. Is it OP though? No, it's actually not, guys. It's not OP. Yes, you can delete something, but that doesn't make it OP. If it's in the right hands, it can be devastating, but from the same perspective, if a Gorilla's in the right hands, that's also devastating. A Jaegeroo in the right hands, that's also devastating. A FV215B, least popular Tier 10 TD, in the right hands is devastating. The tank is not the issue, it's the quantity of them, and it's the amount of TDs at Tier 10. Like I said, I'm a huge fan of Tier 10, and like 30% of my battles are at Tier 10. That's a lot of battles. And one of my favourite tanks was the Death Star. I don't play it anywhere near as much as I used to. Well, because Pattern's now my favourite, and I can't stop playing that thing now. But I remember when this line came into the game. Can you guess what was the complaints? Not enough alpha. That's what people complained about when this tank came to Blitz. Oh, you've nerfed the alpha. Blitz have ruined the Death Star because the alpha's ruined, and now we're complaining it's too much alpha. Logic, it does. Seriously, the tank came to the game with half the alpha it has in its other variants, and everyone was so excited for this tank. And then they were moaning and upset, and I was one of them, who was saying it doesn't have the alpha it used to have, that alpha which it deserves to have from the other variants. And a year or so down the line, we're saying it's got too much alpha. Honestly, though, I don't think that alpha is an issue. It's how many of them there are. There's too many, and that's because of the popularity. But there's two questions which are prompted in that. Let's say, hypothetically, this tank was nerfed because it's popular. It's just going to push everybody else into another TD. That's it. That's all that's going to happen. It's going to push some people into Jaegeroos, more people into Grills, and so on and so forth. That's all that's going to happen. It's not going to accomplish anything other than making the Death Star not as popular. Now let's say hypothetically they reduce the alpha, which is what a lot of people are calling out for. Let's just say that is the case. Logically, all that is going to happen is people are going to look for the next highest alpha damage tank and start swarming that, because people love high damage tanks. And then you're repeating the same situation. Oh, there's too many Jaegeroos about now, there's too much armor, too much hit points, too much alpha damage. And then say, hypothetically, that was nerfed to... I mean, just quickly, look at that result screen. 2 Death Stars. None are at the top, none have high damage. They're not OP. If you want to talk about OP, check out the 263. Jesus Christ, this thing is OP. But yeah, if in terms of if you're unhappy with the alpha, what's going to happen is people like a high alpha damage tank. It's a popular choice for that reason. It doesn't make it OP though, it's just the quantity, which I'm going to talk about how I would address that personally a bit later on in this video. I want to talk about the 263 for a second, because it's unlikely a Death Star could pull a shot like that. Granted, didn't really do a lot of damage, but hey, it still hit. And here's something I want to compare. Death Star, with calibrated shells, firing nothing but HESH, and everyone penetrating, will do an average of 3,915 DPM a minute. That's insane, with 231 penetration. But, well, the 263 has 3,855 with the rammer and 290 millimeters of penetration. Why is no one complaining about this? And you know why? Because it's not popular. And it's Russian. I'm kidding. But no, this tank isn't complained about because it's not popular. If all of these things started running amok and this had 7,000 players in it, yeah, there would be a lot of complaints about the 263. Because you have the same DPM, but with a lot more reliable penetration, a better aim time, better accuracy. This thing is more OP than a Death Star. I am sitting on the front line and I'm just firing non-stop. Granted, some of them are bad shots, but look how much I'm bouncing. Some are going in, very few. I'd be dead right now if I was in a Death Star. If I sat here like this, in a Death Star, I would be absolutely obliterated. But then, there's the topic of sitting on the back line. If I sat on the back line in this thing, I'd still do better than if I did in a Death Star. Because it has better accuracy, better aim time. It's a better tank. It's more reliable. It's just like if you look at low tiers. ISU... Sorry, let's have a look at an SU. An SU is an example. With its top gun has outrageous DPM, outrageous penetration. Is that the most popular gun for it though? Absolutely not. It's the tier 6 derp gun everyone sticks on the SU-152. Why? Giggles! That's exactly the reason. You play a game to have fun. And something like a Death Star with huge alpha, something like an SU-152 with huge alpha, gives you that giggle factor. Destroying a tank because it's popular is just... it's daft. All it's going to do is push people to other tanks like that. And you're stuck in a situation, again, where it's just rinse and repeat until everything is the same and everything is boring. And I would hate Blitz to get to that stage where everything is balanced to an extent that it's all pretty much the same, just looks different. One's got a German flag, one's got a British flag, and so on and so forth. And I'm sure everybody else would. But killing the Death Star because it's popular is just not the right answer. It's really not, honestly. The solution, if you ask me, is to balance Tier 10 Matchmaker properly. As an example, maximum of 3 tank destroyers. Granted, if you're in a tank destroyer, now I'm a big tank destroyer player, fan at Tier 10, but if you max it to 2 or 3 of them in one battle, well, you might queue longer, but it'd be balanced. It'd be a lot more balanced than sitting there with 4 of them. And of course, if somebody has to wait that long to queue because, well, you got to wait until there's a space available in the matchmaker to fit a Death Star, as an example, people might just go, ah, screw it, I'll play my IS-7 or something like that. So you're instantly inhibiting the use of it there. I mean, I was in a platoon with my good friend Petrolhead last night, and we both wanted to take a mouse, but yet every time we both clicked it, the matchmaker pretty much told us to sod off, because we queued for over a minute, and we couldn't get into a game. I switched out my tank to a medium, he stayed in his mouse like that, straight in the game, within 2 seconds. Now, if I really wanted to play my mouse, I would have sat there and waited until we got into a game. However, I just went, I'll just play something else. And then we swapped. He went and played one of his mediums, and I went and played my mouse. So, it swings in roundabouts. But I think it's very important that we say that nerfing the tank because it's popular is just a flat-out no-no. That's just stupid. All the people who acquire right now are going to complain when it gets nerfed, because it's a popular tank. And again, the E4, this in no shape or form is ever called out. I've never heard somebody call out the E4 as OP. Yet, again, it's a tank I absolutely adore playing. And it's pretty much a happy medium between... Well, it's nothing like a medium. It's a happy medium between a heavy tank and a tank destroyer. And it's a beautiful machine to play. And I have virtually the same average damage in this tank as I do in a Death Star. Just like I have the same average damage in a grill as I do in a Death Star. Don't get me wrong, the Death Star just clenches it. I have 3013 average damage in a Death Star. I have about 30 less in a grill, 2988. E4, 2954 is my average damage, 263, 2954. E3, 2936, and then it's a 50B, 2900 is my average damage. The point I'm trying to get at, selecting a Death Star doesn't always mean instant glory, instant figures. It really doesn't, honestly. I take it from someone who's played 1,700 battles in the thing and doesn't play it anymore. I play it sometimes, but very rarely. I know how to take one out, I think, and I also know how to drive one. But yet, I still prefer so many other tanks. So, the average damage, I don't think, is a big deal on the tank. It's the quantity. And again, you can't kill a tank just because it's popular. That's crazy stuff. But you do need to find a way of addressing that. And I don't think it's the Death Star, as I've already stipulated, as being the issue. It's the popularity of tier 10 TDs and the quantity of them. 3 or 4 Death Stars in one game is... No, there's no hope. It's even funnier when you see 2 Jaegeroos and then you also see 2 Death Stars on one team. Good God, you know you are screwed, without fail. Now, in that sort of circumstance, I'm personally one who would say, yeah, that needs addressing, fix it. But when it comes to, say, for example, if there was 2 TDs on each team, even if both of them were Death Stars, it's not the end of the world. They're pathetically weak once they have shot. It cracks me up, actually. I'll see if I can make a video on this. You see people get shot by a Death Star and then run off. No! He's just shot! Charge in! Don't run off! And that's what cracks me up, because you give it the Death Star the ability to reload. And no, just don't do that. Once the Death Star shoots, charge. Now then, there's the other question of, what if the Death Star's camping? Well, 1 Death Star camping, or even 1 Death Star and another TD, or 2 TDs camping, I don't have a problem with. I don't, in the slightest. And the reason being is because it's a tank destroyer. It's meant to camp at the start of a battle, as far as I'm concerned. Well, depending which tank destroyer, of course. The Grill. As an example, that is a fantastic sniper. And it has an obscene camo rating. And it has 3,500 DPM. With 279mm of penetration. You're not going to struggle in a Grill playing camping sniper. And a lot of people do that in TDs because of that. Because it's fun. Can't believe I survived that shot, by the way. The problem, like I said, is when there's 4 of them on one team. I mean, if you look at my team now, I've got 4 TDs, yet that was a very intense, very close game. But when you're on an open map and there's 4 TDs camping, you've got no chance of pushing hard without one of your team being deleted to light them up. But if we didn't have TDs, as an example, or things which played long-range game, everything would be a brawl. And I like a good brawl, but I also like tactics. I also like being able to flank the TDs. I like to be able to work around the map. I like variation. If we didn't have, say, 1 or 2 TDs sitting at the back of a map, or even sitting on the back, we lose that variation. And yes, those TDs do slow down the gameplay. And rightly so, they should. If every single game was a brawl, it would be boring. If there was no tactics involved. I mean, look at that Leo. The Leo's working his way around the flank. And he's doing that to try and take out the big old tanks at the back. He made a fatal mistake in stopping, but it's still... You wouldn't have tactics, variation, gameplay. Everyone would just charge in head first. Because there's nothing sinister with big damage at the back to sway you off doing that. And that's just tactics. And if you know there's an unspotted Death Star, tread carefully. And you won't get shot. I mean, honestly, the amount of times where I've seen people spot me and just pull back out. Why? You know the Death Star's there and you're in a T-54. Why are you pulling back out after spotting me? But that's the thing, is the only thing people hate about the tank is that alpha. But yet people enjoy it and it's the most popular for exactly the same reason. And the only way... I mean, I'm not a developer. I'm not a game developer. I don't have access to as many statistics as they have, and it's not my job. But nerfing that tank for that reason, if you ask me, is just a no-no. No. What you want is some solution that it can remain popular, or remain the way it is in some shape or form. Maybe a slight variation, nerf, or something in terms of mobility. I don't know. If it was me, I would reduce the amount of tank destroyers in one game. I would personally have it as a max of 2 or 3, not 4 or 5. But if you look at nerfing the Death Star, you sure as hell got to look at that 268 and that 263, because they are both outrageous. And while you're there, well, might as well have a look at the grill again. Maybe nerf that a bit more. How would everyone feel about that? Personally, I would hate to see it nerfed even more. I think it is in a good place where it is. It was a bit OP, you've got to give it that. And it's not now, it's there. It's okay where it is. But if everything else around it got adjusted, that's going to become a little bit OP. And then there's the FV215B. As you already know, I'm a big fan of this tank. Yet it's got the worst DPM, and it's got the worst penetration, nearly. But I still think it's a very good tank. I mean, this is another example. There's a Death Star on the enemy team. There's 2 TDs on our team. This is actually a perfect example. There's 2 TDs on our team. There's 2 TDs on theirs. There's the Death Star. He's been spotted. There's one from me for 600 damage. There's another one from the 263. E100's coming in to have a little pop at him. And the 263 is also going to take one more blind fire and finish him off. He's done. He's dead. That's a 0 damage game for that Death Star. But here's the thing. The Death Star... Well, actually, the Death Star driven by that player is a good player. I checked. But aside from its alpha damage, I don't think the Death Star has anything. I mean, you can't bounce anything. Yet the Foch has appalling DPM and not the greatest penetration. Yet I think it's an absolute bully. The only thing the Death Star has is its alpha. And remember, its alpha is heavily, heavily reduced in comparison to what it was on PC. And we were all upset by that, remember. When it came to the game, we were all upset that it didn't have its alpha. And I'm quite happy to admit I've had more 0 or very, very low damage games in a Death Star than I have in any other TD. Probably any other tank for that matter. And without trying to sound arrogant, I like to think I'm a fairly competent player in the Death Star. I have good stats in the Death Star. Yet, sometimes you just get absolutely obliterated in it. So aside from its high alpha being one of the reasons it's so popular, what else are we looking at as an issue at tier 10? Well, really, the amount of TDs, if you ask me, is a backhand of the medium nerf. It's a side effect of it. They wanted to make heavy tanks more popular, more heavy, and the side effect is for those who didn't want to play as many heavy tanks went to TDs. And I genuinely think the best measure to address it is to restrict the amount of TDs in a battle. 4 or 5 of these things in one match is devastating. One of them, well, no. It needs to stay at the back. It needs to be very, very careful because it may have the alpha which his team needs and will rely on. But no, it'd be very weak otherwise. And here we are, we've arrived at the Death Star. This is the first game I've played in this tank tonight. I feel comfortable in the Death Star. I've played a lot of games in it, which is why I probably feel comfortable in it. And you'll notice the first thing I have done is click on the premium Hesh. 231mm of penetration. If any other tank had that, I mean, 263 has pretty much the same DPM as this thing does with Hesh. If its premium ammo had 231mm of penetration, we'd go mad. We'd say it's completely broken and ridiculous. But yet, in this tank, nobody does, because they're more focused on the fact it has that alpha. And yes, it can pen a lot of things with 231mm. But no, it's not always reliable. And it's never going to be reliable with 231mm. And you may think this is a ridiculous place where I've put my Death Star, but from experience, it's not. People don't expect you to be here, in the slightest. And it makes for some interesting gameplay, because your positions allow you to use the Hesh. And that's the key thing, is what to do with your tank to make it workable and reliable. And I think that's all it comes down to with the Death Star. If you know how to work it in the Death Star, you'll have some funny games. If you don't, or you screw up your position, which I have done myself way too many times in the Death Star, it becomes a very weak tank. It is purely all about positioning. You can't just sit in one spot, or exactly the same spot, and expect everything to come to you and to just pen it with Hesh. Well, from my experience, that's never been the case. That STB gave us the side of his turret, so I was very happy for that, because that means I could get that penetrating Hesh shell in. Prior to that, if I hit his gun mantlet, it doesn't really have a mantlet, but if I hit his gun or anywhere around there, it wasn't a guaranteed go in. And now I'm in a situation where I'm looking for that shot. This position I'm in has stopped that T-54E1 on the right-hand side pushing me. I'm pushing up because he doesn't want to get shot again. And that's one of the other things about the Death Star, is, yeah, it restricts gameplay, but that's what it's meant to do. There's 2 of us, big, nasty tank destroyers in this spot. Positioning reduces people doing a certain thing. All the enemy team now have to push a different direction to avoid us by here. But instead, I'm going to push the flank in the Death Star. You get a lot of people camping in the Death Star, and they may get 1 or 2 good shots in with Hesh, but it's never going to be guaranteed. Not camping, anyway. And for me, it has a crazy, crazy giggle factor. And that's why 7,000 people play it all the time. Because it has that giggle factor. And killing it for that reason is just a flat-out no. Killing it in MM, so you can't get as many in, that's a yes. That's how I would see to fix it. So the Death Star's not OP. It's not. Is it broken? Yes. Is it broken because of what it is? No. It's broken because of the quantity and how popular it is. I find it interesting, actually. I'm not comparing this tank, by the way, but KV2. It's friggin' outrageous for what it is. But yet, I've never got into a game with 3 or 4 KV2s. Yet, if you look at the last 90 days, yeah, there's a lot. Have a look, there's a lot. But yeah, I've never got into a game with 3 or 4 KV2s. If I did, I would probably complain about the KV2. Especially if it was a frequent occurrence. At tier 10, 4 of these things, or 4 big old high alpha TDs, is not uncommon. And that, my friends, is where I think the issue lies. Not with this tank, but with the amount of tier 10 TDs in one battle. And that has happened in a response and in a countermeasure to the heavy buff, or the medium nerf rather. I'm going to play one more battle in the Death Star. It's a battle which was played straight after this one. While that's going on, I want to summarise basically this video, my opinions on the Death Star. It's a fantastic, fun tank, and for that reason is why it's the most popular. Nerfing it is just going to killing it, and it's just going to push everything else into other fun TDs like Jaegeroos or Grills. Grills are going to be even more annoying at the back of the map, completely unspotted, wiping things out. 263s, they're outrageous, but for some reason they're not popular because it doesn't have that alpha bite. And because it doesn't have that huge alpha bite, people don't go rushing for it. Yet it's insane. And by killing one of these, you're killing diversity. Everything eventually and slowly becomes the same. Their job is to punish you for very, very large hit point numbers. That's exactly what their job is. And they do it. And they do it fine. It's only an issue when there are just so many of them. When there are so many of them and you get punished by several at once, then that's where the problem is. Genuinely, that's exactly where I think the problem is, not the actual tank. Yes, it can do 1400 shots. I can show you recordings over and over again of 1400, 1500 one-shots at tier 10. But I could also show you hundreds of times over shots which should have penetrated Hesh and didn't. But we don't put videos like that on YouTube because it's not fun to watch. You put up funny shots because it's fun to watch. Or I put up high damage games in reviews because it's a review. I'm trying to highlight the strong points and demonstrate parts of a tank. But check this out. Hesh. That was a bad shot. I was aiming above the track. I did 500 damage. It's not all sunshines and rainbows driving a Death Star. It really isn't. If you haven't driven a Death Star, well, go get one. Honestly, go get one and try it. If all you've ever experienced is being obliterated by Death Stars, go get one. You need to try it to get a full assessment on it. So yeah, this is a highlighted issue, and it is an issue, but the Death Star isn't the issue. The TDs being too many in quantity in one match are an issue. That's my opinion. If somebody said, what would I do with the Death Star? Well, you won't like me, because my opinion will be very much the same as I've heard from some other players. Give it back its insane high alpha, and give it a long reload. That's what I would do. I would give it more alpha, guys, and I would give it a longer reload. It's even more deadly then. It's also even weaker at the same time. Also, guys, you're meant to feel salty when this thing takes off a huge chunk of your health. It's what it's there for. It's why so many people play it. It's fun. It is fun. And the only reason the Death Star, in my opinion, has been targeted as the focal point or as the issue is because it's the most popular. If there were 7,000 people driving around in 263s, oh my god, we would be crying. Can you imagine 3 263s YOLO charging you at once? That's nigh on 12,000 DPM from 3 tanks YOLO charging you with armor and speed. You're done for. Even if there's 2 of you, a heavy tank and a medium tank with good DPM, you're screwed. So we do need to be careful what we wish for here, because if the Death Star's nerfed, there is a chance that crazy sort of world could happen. And remember, if the Death Star gets a nerf, so does the 268, and so does the 263. They should do anyway, because they are insane. And that's my opinion, guys. It's as easy as that. I'm probably not going to do another video on it because I want to do fun videos. I want to do reviews where I can show you some fun games and some horrible screw-ups and go, hey, this is how I like to play a tank, this is how I don't like to play a tank. It's part of the fun. That's fun. In this game, by the way, I only did 2,100 damage. I've penned the E3 so many times on the side with Hesh from that angle as well, And I've also screwed it up like that so many times, which part of the Death Star. But I hope you've all enjoyed the video. I look forward to seeing the comments. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.